What's up YouTube, it's your boy Nasher, welcome back to the channel, and today I have an updated Toon deck profile for you guys today. This build is a lot different than the last one as far as the extra deck goes. I ended up doing a bit of a remix, if you will, with the deck. The last build I had, I was running cards such as Toon Cyber Dragon, Chimeritic Fortress Dragon, and what have you, cards like Waken the Dragon and Torrential, but I decided to switch it up a little bit. So I based this deck off of this new version off of Dark Arm Duel's version, where his extra deck was an Xyz heavy base deck, and I decided to take his idea and make it just a little bit better, just a little bit better. So hopefully you guys are ready for this deck profile. If you guys are, and you guys want to see more deck profiles in the future, make sure you guys give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and follow me on all of my social media, including my Instagram, as I always post the deck lists on my Instagram. The links will be in the description below, as will the info to my fan mail. It will also be down in the description as well. Let's get straight into it. First up, I am actually running not one, not two, not three, literally 6 hand traps in this deck. So first up, I have 2 copies of Gadarla, the Mystery Dust Kaiju. This card can actually work against the Flow of Wonderies decks just by pitching their barrier statue of the Stormwind, because I believe in Flow Wonderies it's the Stormwind statue that works in the Flow Wonderies deck, I believe. Yeah. Barrier Statue of the Stormwinds, I believe that is the one that they use in Flow Wonderies. This card Gadarla just pretty much just stops it in their tracks, which allows you to go into your Toon plays, because there are the only other wind monster that's in this deck is obviously the Toon Harpy Lady, which is essentially an MST. Excuse me, if you have another Toon monster on board, which is really cool. But what's also cool about this card is that if you have this and let's say another level 8 monster, you can instantly go into one of the rank. You can go into the rank 8 Xyz monster that I have in this extra deck, which is none other than Tachyon Dragon, which is really cool. Next up, I got 2 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. I swear, my heart just stopped for a second. I thought somebody was about to open my door. Anyway, Ash Blossom is in the deck to stop your opponent from making their plays, which is obviously obviously one of the best hand traps still to this day. And then to round out the hand traps, I am running 2 copies of Effect Veiler, because you don't want your opponent's Flow Wonderies monsters to be going off. So this card just stops it in its tracks really quickly. Now for the Toon monsters. So first up, we have 3 copies of Toon Blackluster Soldier. This is basically BLS Envoy on steroids, because this card has all the effects of the original BLS Envoy, but instead of banishing a light and a dark, it has the effects of the ritual monster, Blackluster Soldier, where you have to tribute monsters from your hand or field that equal level 8 or more, and it ends up gaining the the Envoy effect, where you can banish a card that your opponent may have on the field, but it cannot attack during the turn this effect was activated. So once you've triggered its effect, if you have Gadarla on board, so let's say you have this card, and let's say you end up having Gadarla on board on your side of the field, you can then overlay BLS and of course your Kaiju into number 107, activate Numeron Force, because I am actually running that card in the deck, go into Neo Tachyon, and of course Numeron Force essentially just becomes a Dark Ruler No More on steroids, which is really cool. Next up, we have a single copy of Blue Eyes Toon Dragon, which is another card, which is one of the cards that can actually attack directly, but you have to pay 500 life points in order to attack. In order for this monster to attack. However, unfortunately, if you don't have Toon World on board, then Blue Eyes Toon Dragon essentially just gets destroyed, which is sad. But still, I mean, it's a 3K beat stick on board, so not much you can say about it. Next up, we have three copies of Toon Dark Magician. This card basically is basically Spell and Trap Rhoda mixed in with the effect where you can essentially just excuse me, where you can essentially just special summon a Toon from your deck simply by just discarding a card. And then of course the Spell and Trap Rhoda, you also have to discard a Toon card in order to do so, which, to be fair, you really don't want to do any discarding, because all the cards in the deck are so good. But if you want to maximize its effect, yeah, you're gonna have to do a lot of discarding. Next up, we have two copies of Red Eyes Toon Dragon, which basically has a Cyber Dragon effect where you can special summon a Toon from your hand. In which case you're going to be targeting Toon Dark Magician, trigger its effect, send I'll say the Toon bookmark, and then just summon out the BLS, and you're just off to the races there. Next, and then to round up the monsters, we got two copies of Toon Mermaid, in which, just like the Blue Eyes Toon Dragon, this card can also attack, but you have to pay 500 life points to do so. And then we are also running three copies of Toon Harpy Lady, which, again, as I said, essentially becomes an MST if you have both Toon World and another Toon monster on board, which is really cool. Now moving on into the spells, and there are quite a few of them. So for the one-ofs in the deck, we have the one Called By, which obviously you don't want your plays to be negated, so Called By just essentially just stops it in their tracks. We are also running as well the Rank Up Magic Numeron Force, simply because I am running Tachyon Dragon, use it to go into Neo Tachyon, and it essentially becomes a Dark Ruler No More after that, which is really cool. The only problem though is that you need to have Neo Tachyon as the only monster on board on your board, because if you have other monsters on board, their effects will essentially just get negated, and that's something you don't want to see. You do not want to see that at all. And if you do see that, it's going to be a problem. It is going to be a massive, massive problem. And now for the Toon cards, we have three Toon Table of Contents, which can just essentially just add any Toon card from your deck to your hand. This is basically the Rhoda for the whole deck. Funny thing is that you can also You can even add another copy of Toon contents, basically just to thin out the deck even more, so you can see your Toons, your Kaijus, your hand traps a lot quicker, which is really fun. Which is actually pretty funny. Next up, we are running 3 copies of Toon Bookmark, which is another form of Rhoda, but the only problem is that you cannot search Bookmark, unfortunately. But what's cool about this is that you can add this next card that I'm going to talk about, which is called Toon Page Flip, which is probably one of the most broken cards you can ever think of, and you can just go off from there, which is really cool. But it is a once per turn with Toon Bookmark. Content is not a once per turn, which is hilarious. Next up, we have 3 copies of Toon Page Flip. The effect of this card reads: if you control Toon World, reveal 3 Toon monsters with different names from your deck to your from your deck. I can't speak. If you control Toon World, reveal 3 Toon monsters with different names from your deck. Your opponent randomly picks one for you to summon, ignoring its conditions, and shuffle the rest back into the deck. So basically, the question becomes: what Toon monsters are you going to be targeting the most? Red Eyes, Dark Magician, and Blue Eyes, or Red Eyes, Dark Magician, and BLS. Basically, any of your higher up monsters, and your opponent is going to essentially pick Red Eyes Toon Dragon because of the fact that you can then trigger its effect to summon out Dark Magician from your hand if you already have a copy in your hand. Trigger DM's effect, send, I'll say, Toon Bookmark to your graveyard. Summon out BLS. Overlay Toon Dark Magician and Blue Eyes Toon Dragon. Summon out Red Eyes Flare Metal Dragon, and you instantly have what, 1, 2 interruptions on board right there, which is insane, absolutely insane. Then, of course, we have 3 copies of Comic Hand. You guys are wondering, wait a minute, Comic Hand? Well, what's that? What's the card do? This card sucks, right? No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't, because you can actually use this card on Ghidorah. So the effect of Comic Hand reads: if you control Toon World, equip to an opponent's monster, take control of it. It is treated as a Toon monster. If your opponent controls no Toon monsters, it can attack your opponent directly. If Toon World is not on the field, destroy this card. So, how do you do this? If you have Toon World on board, you activate Ghidorah's effect, pitch your opponent's barrier statue of the Storm Winds, pitch it, summon this card to your opponent's board, activate Comic Hand, take control of it back to your side of the field, and then you activate Toon Bookmark. If you don't have Page Flip in your hand, you can activate Bookmark, search out the Page Flip, activate Page Flip, target Red Eyes, Dark Magician, and Blue Eyes. Your opponent gets Red Eyes onto your board. You activate Red Eyes effect. If you have Dark Magician in your hand, you can summon the Toon Dark Magician, trigger its effect, send, I'll say the Toon Mermaid. Let's say you have that in your hand. Activate Toon Mermaid. Summon out the Blue Eyes Toon Dragon. Overlay the Blue Eyes and the Ghidorah. Summon Tachyon Dragon, and then activate Numeron Force. Get out Neo Tachyon. If this is what your hand, this would be basically what your hand would look like, if you will. And then, of course, too, the Red Eyes and the Dark Magician's effect would be negated instantly, so you would overlay them to make either Flare Metal or, of course, Big Eye, which both cards I am running in the extra deck. So, that right there is a pretty nasty combo. if you ask me. By the way, shout outs to Starbucks for the coffee. Not sponsored, coffee's awesome. There we go. And then to round up the spells, we are running 3 copies of Toon Kingdom, which is essentially basically Toon World. Not much else to say about it. Now for the traps, we have a pretty decent amount. There are 8 of them. We have 8 traps, 2 copies of 4 different traps. We have two copies of Toon Briefcase, which is essentially basically the Toon version of Compulse, which is pretty hilarious. We have the 2 copies of Toon Terror, which is essentially a Solemn Judgment, which is really nice. So the effect of Toon Terror reads when a spell, trap, or monster effect is activated while you control both Toon World and a Toon monster, negate the activation and destroy that card. You can only activate 1 Toon Terror per turn. So it's essentially it's essentially Solemn Judgment without paying any life points. But speaking of paying life points, we are running 2 copies of Solemn Strike and 2 copies of Solemn Warning to round up the main deck. For the extra deck, we have 2. For the extra deck, I'm going to go backwards from rank 2 to 12, because obviously that's what I'm going to be doing. So first up, we have 2 copies of Totally Awesome. Obviously, because of the fact that we are running the 2 copies of Bahamut Shark, basically Totally Awesome it becomes another really broken disruption on board. You're essentially just going to be summoning Totally Awesome back from the extra deck onto the field off of the effects of the Bahamut Shark, because that basically gives you what, 1, 2, 4, literally 4. It essentially becomes 6 Totally Awesomes right there. So you have basically 4 from the Bahamut Shark's materials, and then the 2 Totally Awesome themselves. So it's as if you have 6 negations right there, which is really nice. We got the 2 Tornado Dragons, which is essentially another MSC, which is really nice. We got the 1 Ice Beast Zero Fine, which is basically another form of Dark Ruler No More, but she also gains an additional 300 attack for each face-up card currently on the field, except herself, which is kind of sad, but the effects last until your next standby phase. So if you activate her effect during your turn, basically your opponent won't be able to play any form of Yu-Gi-Oh until your next standby phase, which is really nice. We got the Time Thief Redoer because, well, Redoer is Redoer. Not much else to say about that. We got the 2 Bahamut Shark, as I had just talked about. Basically gives you 6. Basically gives you 4 more totally awesomes. I was thinking about running 2 copies of Big Eye, but what I'm gonna do is, instead of running 2 Big Eyes, I'm gonna run a single copy of Big Eye and a single copy of number 89, Diablosis the Mind Hacker. So obviously Big Eye becomes a snatch steal when it triggers its effect. The downside is that, just like the Bahamut Sharks, this card cannot attack the turn it triggers its effect, which is sad, but still it's not too bad. And then of course the 1 Diablosis the Mind Hacker can actually break Flow Under Rees, because of the fact that they're so reliant on normal summoning, that when you activate Diablosis the Mind Hacker's effect, as you're about to enter your second main phase, essentially you get to banish one of your opponent's cards from their graveyard, and then you get to mill cards, and then you get to banish cards from the top of your opponent's deck up to up to the number of cards that were banished during that turn. So essentially the amount of cards that get banished from their deck it essentially just doubles each turn until they have no more cards to draw, and it basically puts them basically just puts them on a clock depending on how many cards they have in their main deck, which is pretty nice. And then of course too, we got the one Tachyon Dragon and the one Neo Tachyon, which this card is just a house. Not much else to say about that. We have the two Red Eyes Flare Metal Dragons because obviously every time your opponent activates a card or effect, they get dealt 500 damage. So this puts them on an even deeper clock, depending on what your board looks like. And then of course we've got the one Divine Arsenal AA Zeus Sky Thunder because of the fact that we have the Time Thief Redoer. Because the more materials you have on Redoer, the more board wipes you'll have for Zeus, which is absolutely insane. Now for the side deck, this is my preference. You guys can have whatever side deck you want, but this is my side deck. We have the 2 Ghost Bell and the 2 Ghost Ogre. As I've said multiple times with every other deck profile, Ash Blossom focuses on the board. Sorry, on the deck. Bell focuses on the graveyard. Ogre focuses on the board, which is just these three together are just absolutely perfect together. We are running the DPE package, so we've got Dasher, Celestial, DPE, and of course the one Fusion Destiny. We've got the two Cosmic Cyclone and the one Harvey's Feather Duster for even more back row removal. And then of course we've got the 2 copies of Shadow Toon, which this card is just a house. So if you guys have never seen this card before, this was released in Dragons of Legend 2, which reads, if you control Toon World, target one face-up monster your opponent controls and inflict damage to your opponent equal to the attack of that face-up monster, and it's a once per turn. So this again, if you played this with, you know, while you have the flare Metal Dragon, Zeus, and not Zeus, Diablos is the Mind Hacker. Basically, this puts your opponent on a 4-turn, 5-turn clock, depending on what your board looks like. And Shadow Toon just basically can deal your opponent a significant amount of damage depending on what their board looks like, which is really nice. And then to round up the side deck, we have the 2 copies of Zing Zing, who basically, as it's not exactly removal, but it's essentially a floodgate to force your opponent to activate their back row, because if they don't activate their back row, Zing Zing Hu just essentially just prevents your opponent from activating the 2 set back row that you targeted with this card, which is really nice. But guys, that is going to do it for this deck profile. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure you guys smash that thumbs up button. If you guys are new to the channel and you guys want to see more deck profiles in the future, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you guys do not miss out on any new content that comes your way. And make sure you guys follow me on all of my social media, including my Instagram, because I always post these deck lists on my Instagram. Links will be in the description below. And if you guys have any family you guys want to send me and you guys want me to open it up on the channel, again, the info will also be in the description as well. And on that, this is your boy Nash, signing out.